Mark Reyes from the Philippines saw an online job offer. The requirements were minimal, the process looked simple, and the salary was listed as $5,000 a month. It looked straightforward, so he accepted the offer and traveled to Thailand. A few days later, Mark woke up in a room that clearly had nothing to do with any normal job. The room smelled stale. A bright surgical light was shining above him. There were fresh stitches across his abdomen, and both his wrists were wrapped with plastic bands that had only numbers printed on them. No one told him what had been done to his body. There were no documents, no consent forms, and no explanation. In the region where Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar meet, known as the Golden Triangle, this kind of situation is not rare. The area used to be known mostly for opium and drug trafficking. Now it is also linked to something even more disturbing: the illegal trade in human organs. United Nations estimates suggest that globally, the illegal organ trade generates somewhere between $840 million and $1.7 billion every year. Organ trafficking networks in and around the Golden Triangle are believed to contribute significantly to that figure. Over the last decade, investigators and reporters have tied disappearances, forced labor camps, and unexplained surgeries to criminal groups operating across this border region. Victims have been found with one kidney missing, with partial sections of their liver removed, or with corneas extracted. None of these procedures were done in legal hospitals. None involved proper consent. On the black market, a single kidney can sell for $50,000 to $100,000, depending on the buyer and the destination. That kind of money is more than enough to keep a criminal industry running. The process usually starts simply. People like Mark see online job ads or receive offers through social media, WhatsApp, or Telegram. The offers are often targeted at people who are poor, unemployed, or already in debt. Some are promised travel, food, and accommodation. Others are offered loans that later turn into leverage. In many cases, the victim is never told anything that sounds directly illegal. The trap is built to look normal. Once someone accepts, they are given instructions to meet a contact at an airport, hotel, or bus station. At that point, the faces change. Drivers, fake hotel staff, and even people acting like immigration officers appear. Reuters investigations and other reports have documented cases where victims were approached by men dressed like airport or hotel staff and moved straight into vehicles controlled by trafficking networks. One Ethiopian IT consultant, publicly identified only as Ali, described arriving at Bangkok's international airport and being guided by a supposed hotel representative. Armed men later joined the trip. The vehicle drove toward the border and stopped at a remote checkpoint. A guard stamped a photocopy of Ali's passport and allowed the group to continue. Ali believed he was still in Thailand. In reality, he was being pushed toward the Myanmar side. Cases like this show how easy it is to move people through these routes when local gatekeepers cooperate. Multiple border crossings in the region allow vehicles to move with little or no inspection, especially at night. Vans and unregistered cars are waved through. These same routes once carried heroin and other drugs. Now they also move human beings, whose bodies are treated as assets. When someone like Mark is inside one of those vehicles, there is no sign on the outside that anything is wrong. After transport, victims are moved into compounds. These compounds are not just organ farms. Many are large scam and forced labor centers. UN and regional reports indicate that over the past decade, hundreds of thousands of people from countries like the Philippines, Nepal, Malaysia, Kenya, and others have been taken into these cyber scam and call center camps across the Golden Triangle. They are forced to work long hours in online fraud, romance scams, crypto cons, or other illegal operations. Inside these compounds, there's a clear hierarchy. Some people are classified as workers. Others, especially those who are sick, injured, or considered useless, are treated as expendable. Survivors have described electric shocks, beatings, and even hot water torture for those who fail to meet targets or attempt to resist. In multiple testimonies, one threat appears again and again: if you can't work, they will take your organs. This threat is not just psychological. In 2023, 8 Filipino migrants rescued from a compound in Myanmar told the Straits Times that workers who refused to cooperate were threatened with organ harvesting. Another case involved a Nepali victim named Ashraf. He was held, forced into heavy work and regular beatings, and his captors demanded $10,000 for his release. His eventual freedom came only after money was paid. Mark's story fits into this wider pattern. He came for a job. He woke up with surgical scars. And in between those two moments is an entire hidden system that turns people into resources. In the next part, we'll look inside that system more closely. How the compounds are organized, how people are selected for organ removal, and how one specific location on the Myanmar border became a key node in this industry. Inside the compounds, the structure is brutally organized. The people running these places follow a system that has been refined over years of trafficking, forced labor, and illegal medical operations. Victims aren't treated as individuals. They're evaluated the same way you would inspect inventory. New arrivals are scanned for physical strength, medical compatibility, blood type, and overall health. The ones who look capable of working are pushed into scam operations. The ones who don't, those who are injured, sick, or simply resist, are marked differently. Some compounds operate in plain sight. Others are hidden deep inside Myanmar's border territories, where criminal groups have full control. One of the most infamous areas is a massive criminal zone known as KK Park, located near the river dividing Myanmar from Thailand. Multiple survivors from Kenya, Nepal, and Southeast Asia have described KK Park as a place where people disappear, where torture is routine, and where illegal surgeries happen without warning. Among the documented cases, one of the most cited is the story of Grace, a 22-year-old woman from Kenya. According to reports from the South China Morning Post, she was taken into KK Park under the guise of a job offer. Weeks later, she was found near collapse. By the time she reached a hospital, doctors discovered signs of an attempted organ extraction. NGO director Michelle Moore stated that the surgical wounds and internal damage were consistent with a botched organ removal. Grace barely survived. KK Park is not an isolated anomaly. It exists because of a network that protects it. Investigations point to Chinese-run criminal syndicates controlling the financial and operational side, while armed militias, particularly the Karen National Army, provide territorial security. These militias allow compounds to operate without interference. They ensure that no outside law enforcement can approach. And in return for this protection, they receive money, weapons, or a cut of the profits. Those profits are enormous. Organ trafficking is only one piece of an industry that spans forced labor, online scamming, human trafficking, and ransom. A Council of Europe expert estimated that criminal networks involved in global organ trafficking may generate more than $1.2 billion annually. In the Golden Triangle, the combination of weak borders, corruption, and militia power has created a perfect environment for this business to expand. The medical side of the operation is handled with chilling precision. These are not amateur procedures. The groups have access to real surgeons, some licensed, some disgraced, some working for money. They work inside makeshift operating rooms built in warehouses, private villas, or multi-story compounds. While the tools may not match hospital standards, the teams know exactly what they're doing. Organ extraction requires skill, and the people performing it have done it enough times to follow a routine. Victims describe rooms with surgical tables, oxygen tanks, basic monitoring equipment, and trays of instruments. Nothing looks sterile, nothing looks safe. The purpose isn't health. The purpose is removal. The selection process is simple. Workers who fail quotas, victims who resist, migrants who can't pay ransom, or those whose families won't negotiate. These are the ones who vanish first. And the system surrounding them ensures full secrecy. Vehicles move through borders without checks. Some local police officers have been accused of ignoring reports or refusing to intervene. Fake immigration officers at airports have been documented guiding victims into cars controlled by traffickers. Reuters investigations revealed that even standard passport procedures are sometimes bypassed during cross-border transfers. If the network decides someone will disappear, nothing stops them. For the victims who survive long enough to witness the system from inside, the experience is the same everywhere. Punishment for disobedience, fear of being selected, and the constant reminder that everything around them runs on money. Organ buyers are rarely identified. They come from countries where the waiting list for transplants is long, or where strict medical regulations make illegal shortcuts appealing. A kidney for $50,000 can mean life or death for someone who can afford it. For the victim who loses it, the outcome is usually far worse. In forced labor compounds, the threat of organ harvesting is used as a weapon of control. When someone refuses to work or tries to escape, they're told what will happen to them. In some camps, workers have repeated the same sentence: if you can't work, they will take your organs. It isn't always carried out, but the threat alone is enough to keep most people silent. Mark never expected to wake up in that condition. He didn't know about KK Park. He didn't know about the Ethiopian case, the Nepal case, or the Filipinos who were rescued after months inside these operations. He didn't know about the militias protecting the compounds or the corruption keeping them alive. He only understood one thing: whatever was happening to him was routine here. In the next part, we'll look at how the extraction system operates, how organs move from these remote compounds to international buyers, and how corrupted checkpoints and syndicate logistics make one of the world's darkest industries almost impossible to stop. Inside the Golden Triangle, the extraction system works like a supply chain. Everything has a role, everything has a timing, and every person inside the network knows exactly what their responsibility is. Once a victim is flagged for removal, the entire process moves fast. It begins with medical assessments that look routine on the surface: blood tests, tissue matching, basic physical checks. Victims are told these exams are standard, or they're done while the victim is unconscious. But the purpose is simple: identify which organs can be sold and where they will go. The value depends on compatibility and the buyer's urgency. On the black market, a kidney can sell for $50,000 to $100,000. A liver segment can reach even higher depending on the country. Corneas, heart valves, bone material, and skin grafts all have their own prices. Traffickers don't hide why this happens. The money is too large and the risk is lower than most other crimes. A United Nations estimate places the global illegal organ trade between $840 million and $1.7 billion annually. When you compare that with weak border control and high corruption, the business becomes almost guaranteed. Once a buyer is confirmed, the extraction schedule is built. The victim is moved to a quiet room or a separate building inside the compound. These rooms don't look like real hospitals, but they function like them. Some survivors describe stainless steel tables, outdated monitors, anesthesia tanks, and surgical tools laid out in trays. The operations are handled by real medical professionals, people who know exactly how to remove an organ quickly. One of the most disturbing details from multiple investigations is how the logistics work. After surgery, the extracted organ doesn't stay in the compound. It moves, sometimes by motorcycle, sometimes by refrigerated vans, sometimes in coolers carried directly across borders. Border guards rarely inspect these vehicles. At night, entire convoys pass through without being stopped. This is where corrupt officials come in. Traffickers don't need every officer. They just need a few who will wave the vehicles through. The destination varies. Some organs go to underground clinics in Southeast Asia. Some are shipped toward China, where transplant demand is high. Others go to private networks connected to wealthy clients who want operations done off-record. These transactions don't leave trails. Payments are routed through cryptocurrency, offshore accounts, or intermediaries who disappear immediately after the deal. Compounds like KK Park operate because they are shielded by groups far stronger than local police. Chinese criminal networks finance the operation. The Karen National Army provides territorial control and physical protection. Together, they create a zone where international law means nothing. Journalists and NGOs have repeatedly pointed out that Myanmar's border militias allow these compounds to function because the profits are enormous. Money buys silence. Money buys freedom. Money buys the right to run an industry that should not exist. This is why raids rarely succeed. The groups running these operations have warning systems, early alerts, and insiders. When law enforcement tries to intervene, the compounds are emptied within hours. Vehicles move people across rivers, into mountain roads, or deeper into militia territory. By the time authorities reach the site, the rooms are cleaned, the equipment is gone, and the victims have already been relocated. And the victims who don't survive? They vanish completely. The records list them as missing migrants. No investigation follows. No family gets answers. Their bodies are either buried in remote forested areas or cremated without identification. The system ensures there is no trail. But the people who escape, those extremely rare survivors, give the world a partial window into how this industry works. A few Filipino workers described seeing fellow migrants disappear overnight after refusing to participate in scams. A Nepali survivor talked about workers being told directly that useless people would be taken for surgery. The Ethiopian consultant recounted seeing multiple vehicles filled with bound victims being moved toward the Myanmar border. And case reports like Grace from Kenya confirm that illegal surgeries are not a rumor. They're documented reality. Mark's situation was part of this same machinery. The stitches on his abdomen were not an accident. They were part of a transaction. Someone had ordered an organ. Someone had paid. And someone had prepared him as if he were nothing more than inventory. The Golden Triangle has become a place where criminal syndicates, corrupt officials, and armed militias all support a market that treats human life as raw material. And as long as this network stays profitable, it will not stop. In the final part, we'll break down how this industry stays alive, why governments struggle to shut it down, and why victims like Mark rarely make it home. The question most people ask is simple. Why doesn't anyone stop this? The answer is not simple at all. The organ trafficking industry inside the Golden Triangle survives because it is protected from every direction. Criminal syndicates control the money. Armed militias control the land. Corrupt officials control the borders. And governments outside the region have almost no access to the areas where victims are held. Myanmar's border territories, especially those controlled by militias like the Karen National Army, function as parallel states. Police from neighboring countries can't enter. International agencies can't conduct operations. And the local groups who run these areas have no interest in shutting down a business that generates millions every month. As long as the money flows, the compounds stay untouched. Thailand faces its own problems. Officially, the Thai government denies involvement, but multiple investigations, including Reuters reporting, have documented fake immigration officers, airport infiltrators, and transportation staff who cooperate with traffickers. Some do it for bribes, some out of fear, some simply because the system is already too large to resist. Vehicles carrying victims or extracted organs move through borders with little interference. Guards wave them through at night. Paperwork is ignored or forged. And when victims vanish, they're written off as missing migrants, people who probably ran away, changed jobs, or returned home without informing family. It keeps the numbers low on paper and keeps the pressure away from officials. Demand plays a massive role too. Wealthy clients in various countries want organs fast. Legal transplant waiting lists can take years. Black market operations offer organs in days. A kidney for $50,000 to $100,000 is nothing for people with access to private networks. This demand fuels the entire chain, from recruitment to transport to extraction. And then there's the forced labor side. Scam compounds generate billions through online fraud. Human beings are treated as disposable employees. If someone refuses to work or becomes too sick to continue, the threat of organ removal becomes a tool of control. In some camps, it becomes reality. This combination, forced labor, organ trafficking, militia protection, border corruption, and international demand, creates a system that is incredibly hard to dismantle. Raids fail because the networks get advance warnings. Compounds empty out before authorities arrive. Victims are moved deeper into militia zones where no foreign agency can operate. By the time the outside world hears about a case, the evidence is already gone. And this is why people like Mark rarely escape. His story mirrors dozens of others. People from the Philippines, Nepal, Kenya, Malaysia, and Ethiopia who followed job offers, entered the Golden Triangle, and woke up cut open, beaten, or trapped inside border compounds. The system doesn't see them as workers, it sees them as assets, a body with parts that can be sold. Mark's stitched abdomen wasn't a mystery. It was the result of a machine that has been operating for years, hidden behind forests, river checkpoints, and militia-controlled towns. A machine that continues because every part of it, money, power, geography, and silence, works perfectly together. Some victims escape, most don't. And the industry moves on to the next person, because in the Golden Triangle, where borders mean nothing and criminal empires run the land, human organs have become a currency. And as long as that currency remains valuable, stories like Mark's will keep happening. This documentary is not about a single victim. It's about a billion-dollar system, one built on desperation, violence, and the parts of the human body that can be sold to the highest bidder. And until the world identifies every link in that system, the Golden Triangle will remain one of the darkest markets on Earth.